Hello everyone and welcome to my presentation. My name is Hama and today I will be talking about the case study on SkyScanner. As you can see, I structured my presentation into 3 chapters: an overview, a summary, and the Q&A part. So let's get right into the overview. So SkyScanner is a platform that was founded in 2003 by 3 IT experts, and their goal was to create a platform where consumers could find the best travel deals. And they did a very good job with this, leading to them being acquired by Trip.com 13 years later in 2016 for a whopping 1.4 billion pounds. And they kept on building on the successes that they had earlier, leading them to now have 90 million global users per month. Now it's obvious to see that SkyScanner is a very successful case for a case study, but the question we have to ask ourselves is, why was SkyScanner so successful? And I narrowed it down into a couple of different points. So the first one would be the user-centric approach, meaning that they focused on tools that would make the experience of consumers or customers better, like flexible date searches and price alerts. And this led them to gain a larger user base. Then they also were very early investors into technology like AI and personalizing the app, for example. They were also huge proponents for globalization and localization of their product, meaning that they were trying to expand into different markets while also making it easy for customers in those markets to claim the services. Now they also focus on sustainability and ethics. This is very important since metrics like ESG are becoming more and more important in business, and SkyScanner is already on the rise in this regard. And then, of course, they're also very resilient and adaptable. This was very visible when, for example, the COVID years were happening and people just weren't traveling that much anymore. And there's a lot of volatility even now in the travel industry with strikes and everything around it, meaning that it's not a very easy place to conduct business, but SkyScanner has done so impeccably well. So the first question posed in the case study was, why did SkyScanner adopt Amazon Web Services for its IT infrastructure? Now, of course, SkyScanner could probably build up their own cloud services themselves, but this would take a lot of money and would probably not be efficient, which is why they decided to get the experts involved and work together with Amazon. And this had 4 really big positive impacts. The first one being that they never had an issue with scalability. This means that usually when a company starts to make larger numbers or create some sort of hype or buzz around themselves, they have to buy new machines to keep their production up with the demand. But because they were working with Amazon, no matter how fast they grew, Amazon already had the capabilities and facilities to help SkyScanner actually provide for that demand. Then there's also, of course, the cost efficiency. As I mentioned, the aviation and travel industry is quite volatile, meaning that if you run your own servers and demand is all of the sudden on a downturn, you have to pay extra money for no reason. But in this case, they don't have to because they just rent the server space from Amazon. And this, of course, makes them way more cost efficient. Then there's also the global availability of AWS. Creating the infrastructure to be available all over the world is quite tedious and would take a lot of money. And Amazon has already done that work in the past, which means that SkyScanner could just piggyback off of that and use that alongside Amazon. Then there's also the fact that SkyScanner could use all of their capabilities and resources to work on what they're doing the best, which is to make sure that their travel search and their services towards travelers are the best they can possibly be. And this is only possible because they don't have to worry at all about security or anything that has to do with the servers, basically. Okay, so the second question was, what strategic decisions enabled SkyScanner to become a leader in its industry? And this question is a bit tougher because there's many different reasons as to why they became this powerhouse. The first one is the global expansion. with the help of AWS, of course, as well, they have managed to make their services available in 30 different languages. This is a very good point for SkyScanner because the market where they started off with, being the West, US, and Europe, is already quite saturated, while other countries and areas still have large customer bases, and having a service that is very convenient with the user-centric design, which is another point, as well as the localized languages, makes them very well equipped to take this new customer segment. Then they also had good acquisitions. On the one hand, with the partnerships that they did in their own work, that being AWS, for example, GitHub, and Fog, but also because they were acquired by Trip.com, which gave them a lot of legitimacy. And then also SkyScanner invested a lot into technology and is still doing so with, for example, AI. And this will just keep making the service more convenient, which is exactly what the customers want. They want a service that is cheap, reliable, and convenient. So what are the primary benefits of the SkyScanner's mobile app? Well, the first one, just like with any other app, is the convenience. Users don't have to use their laptops, for example, and have a tailored version of SkyScanner just for their phone, which they can then use on the go in the middle of their travels, basically. Then there's also the personalization. This entails, for example, recommendations, but also keeping the search history in mind and keeping a history of all of your travels in the past. Then there's the real-time updates. This is very important, together with push notifications. If one of your flights is delayed, if, I don't know, anything isn't going according to plan, you will immediately be reached on your phone. And then there's also the offline access to certain features, which means that while you're maybe flying through the air and in airplane mode, you can still check certain information that you might need. Now, as I already mentioned, SkyScanner is a very global company and being used all around the world. And so the question, of course, just appears that how did SkyScanner ensure that all of their services would be used in different countries? And as I already mentioned a couple of times, localization is a huge point in that regard, meaning that SkyScanner offers its platform in 30 different languages, but also with different alterations depending on the region that you are accessing it from. And this is very important because consumer behaviors are different in different countries. Your level of spending, your average income, all of these things change from one location to another. Therefore, keeping all of this in mind and creating basically localized, personalized versions of SkyScanner is the way to go, and that's how they created this multinational company or service. Then there's also the local partnerships. This means that they collaborate with local travel agencies wherever they have their services. And of course, this also makes regional travel more possible instead of just international or aviation travel. Then there's of course also the global data centers, meaning that you can access all of the data anywhere at any point in time. This is also only possible because of AWS and other cloud solution companies that work together with SkyScanner. And then there's also the compliance with local regulations, meaning that SkyScanner caters to all of the governments and all of the data standards that are available in different countries to make sure that their service is in line with the regulatory questions, but also available for all of their customers. Now, the last question, of course, is a retrospective, which is how has SkyScanner managed to outperform its competitors? And the first point that has to be mentioned is the technological edge. This just means that all of the technology that SkyScanner uses make their services more convenient once again, therefore giving them the edge over other competitors. This is especially important in, for example, the comprehensive service offerings. This means that you can book anything on SkyScanner, that being your flight, your accommodation, your transportation, whatever it is, you can book it on SkyScanner all in one place. There's also the price competitiveness, therefore ensuring another very important thing for all customers, which is that they're getting a good price for their travels. And there is, of course, customer trust. meaning that because they are working with, for example, AWS, people trust that there won't be a data breach. People trust that the company is legitimized because of the acquisition that once happened with Trip.com. And there is then, of course, also the global reach and localization in different places, which all enables customers to feel confident and happy with the services that SkyScanner provides. All right, so these were my thoughts on the case study. I hope all of that made sense. If you have any questions or anything you want to discuss with me, please don't hesitate to contact me. My email address is right underneath the SkyScanner logo. And thank you so much for your attention.